Welcome to another episode of the Go with John show. Today, we have Justin Messer, Chief Operating Officer of Prosperity Mortgage. Justin, thank you for coming in.
Hey, thanks.
So, Justin, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a dad. I know you're into college football. So tell us a little bit about your kids and what are they into and what are you into with them?
Yeah, well, kids are 6 and 4. So they're not into much. I mean, it's real simple stuff. We did a Cub Scout hike last week, a little bit of basketball.
Right.
Trying to get out of the granny shots and into the overhand shots with my son who's 6.
Yeah.
It was interesting having kids that age coming up through like the last COVID stuff that happened, right? Just trying to navigate it. And, fortunately it was a mix between kind of in-person and virtual school and my wonderful wife who basically, tends the house, while I'm out doing whatever, she did a great job navigating through that. And it's just been wild,
Yeah.
So dad first naturally. And fortunately I just have a wonderfully supportive wife who really takes care of, runs the show, at home for me. And that includes, as you said, kind of Saturdays, but I really wish I had more hobbies.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad I don't.
Right.
My hobbies are like college football and wine.
Right.
That's about it. So,
are you a red drinker or a white drinker?
I'm indiscriminate.
Yeah.
If you look at my cellar, it's mostly red.
Okay.
But I also spend some time like up in northern Michigan, and you don't drink much of the red up there. You
Right.
focus on the whites and that sort of thing. So I'll hit some whites as well. But
Yeah.
but that's about it.
Good. Well, it's actually, I've got my kids just turned 13. I have twins.
There you go.
And to have COVID with young kids and to have to go through that, I think is a lot better than the folks that I've been working with, in my real estate practice that have kids that are like teenagers, right? Because it was absolute murder for them where their kids thought they were just getting ready to get out of the house and all of a sudden COVID hits and they're back locked down with their parents, and it wasn't good for the parents or the kids.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
That would be a disaster.
Yeah. But 6 years old, for me, from 5 years going forward was a lot of fun once my kids got to 5. So I think you're getting kind of right into the sweet spot.
Well, one thing is it was like a very eye-opening thing, whereas I think until they got to be 6, so like when my son was 5 and my daughter was 3, like I still had some control over my schedule. Mm-hmm. And I already see it being, I might as well just wake up on Saturday morning and get an itinerary.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no real purpose in me planning anything. Outside of their activities.
Right. It gets worse.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm prepared.
Yeah. Okay. So you're Chief Operating Officer at Prosperity Mortgage. So tell us a little bit about what you do at work.
Sure. So mortgage companies have a lot of moving parts. Mm-hmm. One of the most visible things, right, are really your sales associates or people out in the field. So everything basically outside of that, in one way or another, comes under my purview. Mm-hmm. So, we talk about whether it's setting interest rates, whether it's managing profitability, whether it's interest rate risk. So, for example, if you approach your loan officer and you'd say, I'd love to lock that interest rate of 3.25%.
Right.
Sometimes you lock it for 60 days. Probably in your business, you might lock it for 180 days in new construction, right?
Right.
That sort of thing. Someone has to actually protect it and make sure that 3.25% is worth the same amount in 180 days that it was worth there. Mm-hmm. So you hedge that with interest rate risk management, right? So that piece of the business reports up to me.
So how do you do that?
So generally what you do is you sell forward securities. So in other words, let's say the easiest way to think of it. Let me think about this.
Sure.
Let's say you're locking $1 million loan today
Right.
for 3.25%. Mm-hmm. So what I would do is I would take the underlying security that makes up the majority of the profitability of that loan. I would sell it forward to deliver to an investor in 120 days. Mm-hmm. So it's a derivative contract. I sell that derivative contract forward for delivery in 120 days. The loan closes in 90. I get it, ready to go. I then put it into that security and deliver it to the investor. And so then my risk is minimized because of that. Otherwise, if I just say, yep, I'm going to give you 3.25%, and then when you close, if the prevailing rate is 4%,
right.
I've now lost every single dollar and actually lost some money.
Right, you're paying them to finance their home.
You got it. So that's for example, when if anyone's ever had a lock extension, right? Mm-hmm. So like, why do I possibly have to pay a company for 30 more days. And the reason is because technically I have to buy back that security that I sold for delivery and then sell a new one.
Right.
And there's an entire cost in that because now people are getting it 30 days later than they thought they were getting it. So, it costs a quarter or, 25 basis points, whatever it happens to be, in order to do that. So that whole group comes up to me. So rate sheets, et cetera.
Yeah.
Products, so mortgage products, credit policy, and then, loan manufacturing. So in other words, the whole process of how a loan comes in the door to how it goes out the door, and then cleaning it up afterwards as well. And, that has been a big area, where the focus has shifted really from what I would say all elbow grease. You'd have a loan file and it would actually be a manila envelope.
Right.
And it would move from desk to desk to desk.
Right.
And there are companies that still operated like that just before the pandemic. So you can imagine what happened when desks disappeared.
Yes.
Right. So, the push for the last, 15 years really has been how do we digitize that transaction and make it much easier for all of our customers, from my perspective, right? Whether it be the realtor, whether it be the borrower, or even our team members inside, who, we also view as customers as well. How do we make it simpler for them?
Right.
So, that kind of dovetails into the other group that comes up to me, which, obviously in most companies, and I don't just say this to sound cool, but technology ends up taking up the majority of the time now and focus. And it's really tough to say what is technology and what isn't. I think you look at every problem that arises in your company, you take a step back, and a lot of times the best solution doesn't necessarily involve a huge technology push, but it's hard for people to understand that because immediately you go, well, technology should fix it,
right?
And immediately you want to make an investment and say, well, we should automate this or we should do this, and sometimes that's the answer. Like we like to say, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So it's kind of picking and choosing where those kind of projects fit is really important.
Yeah, it's amazing. You do everything electronically through the whole entire loan process, and then you print it all out at the end so you can get it to the settlement table on paper.
It's nauseating.
It is, isn't it? But then you have to scan it all back in, right, after it's signed.
No comment. Yes. And then you have to mail it back. And let's just be honest. I mean, the UPS, FedEx, et cetera, I mean, they had the same disruptions that everyone else had with the beginning of COVID. So it was chaos. I mean, there would be notes we were tracking down, and anything can disrupt that process, which is why it's so broken, right? You talk about this when the ice storms hit in Texas, right? All of a sudden, UPS lost 52 notes.
Right.
And so we spent the next 2 weeks hunting down these 52 notes and trying to tell, homeowners who, I don't know, probably half of them were first-time home buyers.
Right.
And we say, hey, by the way, we don't have your note.
Right.
And they go, what does that mean? Are you going to take my house? And you have to explain to them, well, no, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like, we'll either find them, shred them, we have solutions for it. But it's just that uneasiness that creates it. And it's like we have this very antiquated piece of the process. You hit dead on it.
Yeah.
And, we're moving light speed ahead in terms of full e-close. I mean, our company, Prosperity, is at what we call hybrid e-close, which means we really only have to print off, 5-6 documents at closing in most cases.
That's not bad, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's still, why do you have to meet someone face-to-face and do all this and go through it?
Well, I think it probably helps prevent fraud, right? Because there's a lot of fraud in the real estate industry.
Yeah, I mean, take a step back though. How many things can you do online where you can verify identity effectively? And I mean, I think that's one of the things. Plus, ideally you've gone through the transaction, and for us at least, since we're primarily realtor affiliate, right? What do we have? We have a realtor that we trust in the process. We have a loan consultant that we trust in the process, who all are kind of keeping their eyes and ears open for
looking
something.
For flags,
right? Yeah. And we have, third parties all over the place, whether it be an appraiser, et cetera. So I think that the system's a lot sounder today than it was historically. At the closing table, verifying identity, I think you can actually do a better job than just face-to-face. I mean, it's like with all things digital.
Right.
People say, I don't like to link. Why would you underwrite a file with linked digital bank statements as opposed to bank statements that someone provides? It's impossible for someone, or I would say highly unlikely and difficult for someone, to falsify digitally linked documents that are linked from your bank directly to your lender. Right. So we're increasing the soundness of the transaction constantly as we move down the digital transaction route. It's not a matter of we're becoming loose. And I mean, I think that a big disservice happened in terms of mental ideas when Rocket came out. And I used to work for Rocket. Let me be transparent about that. But when Rocket came out with the Super Bowl commercial, that was like push button, get mortgage.
Right.
I loved it. And it was a jaw drop moment for me where I knew the game had changed. Right? Because it was one of those things where, you had a million irons in the fire to get to that point, and someone beat you to the punch, and they did it in the Super Bowl. Right? And you're like, oh no. Right? But that harkened back to everyone the ease of credit that occurred pre-crisis last time. Right? And really, that's not what it was. Right? It's all of this documentation. Like, it's only happening on, let's just make up a number here. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 transactions that are actually like that, because it is the people who are provable W-2, you know them, you know where they work, you know their bank account, you know exactly how much they can make. Not only that, these aren't people who are pushing the threshold on affordability. Right. These are, let's call it, people that are only paying a quarter of their gross income to all of their debts. For the most part. Right. So these are pretty vanilla people in terms of the transaction. It's not someone that owns 22 companies and 10 properties. It's the most vanilla of the vanilla stuff out there. So from that standpoint, the push button get mortgage is not a bad risk. It's not leading us down a bad credit path. It's not leading us to a negative spot. Could it get there? Of course. Is it there today? Absolutely not.
Well, I think really what got us into trouble in 07, 08 was that whole stated income thing, right? Where you could just go to a bank and sign a statement that you made X.
That was a problem. There was a lot of things that led to that, and I mean, when you take a step back and I think people get nervous whenever housing gets hot. Right.
For sure.
And they look back and they say, okay, is this a pending doom situation, or is this a all aboard situation where we should be invested in rental properties? And just really quickly, the economy is in much better shape, and not only that, the individual American household is in much better shape financially. I mean, if you talk about the differences then versus now, I think the numbers are like right pre-crisis, people were like 8.5% of their disposable income was used on housing, and now it's 3%, 3.5%, something like that, which is an all-time low. If you look at other factors like just housing specifically, vacancy rates, right? So they were up north of 3%, which means we were just building and building and building, and people were buying without any idea of what to do with the houses, right? So upwards of 3%. Now we're like sub 0.9%, which is the lowest on record since like the 60s. If you look at the momentum, which is really the supply and demand issue we have with housing, like you have a tremendous amount of people that really, really want to buy a house in the next 12 months. And if you look, half of those people are first-time home buyers. So it's not people that are moving up or out. It's their, rents continue to get expensive. So the entire ecosystem seems pretty healthy right now.
It does. No, I would agree with you. Absolutely. And I think there's been a shortage of new home building for the last decade, and that's going to take a long time for the industry to catch up on.
I mean, when we look at sales, 800,000 to 900,000 units a year are new homes, and 5.5 million are existing. So, I don't know, 10, 12% of the market are new homes. And, that was an interesting thing when you connected the dots and led it from the last crisis. And we're in an interesting inflection point with work and labor right now. But if you look back to that one, that craft, construction, new construction, et cetera, it blew up, right? So you had all of these people that were skilled trades or whatever. They had to go find new careers. And what happened is a lot of those people didn't return to that industry.
That's correct.
Right? So the weird thing that happened is it kind of distilled out a lot of the, what we'd call affordable starter home, track home type new builds. And everything seemed to trend more, and there's nothing wrong with this. I would do the same thing because everyone's an entrepreneur, right? More custom homes, because if you only have so much labor, you're going to use it to yield the highest result, right? And so that had a lot to do with a lot of the custom home. So if you look at the price of new home construction has gone up precipitously since then. So you have a lot more of that, and that labor is not necessarily coming back and never had come back, right? And now you hit this disruption. Not only do you have a labor disruption where people aren't working, and not to get into the politics of that, whether that mattered or not, I have no idea, right? But secondly, you have the supply constraints. You had the labor,
and we're still going through it right now.
You got it. So there's actually right now there's more new homes, single family homes under construction it actually is exactly the same as it was in 06, 07, or 05, 06, right? So the number of homes under construction, you look at that and you say, fantastic. But there's like a counter argument, I think, which is like, because we can't deliver them.
Right.
It's like
right.
the cars.
And they're taking a lot longer to build.
That's what I'm saying, right?
So if it took, 2 years ago, if you could build a new home in 4 months, now it's taking sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10 months, right? So your stats are skewed because your delivery time is longer.
100%. I mean, the most obvious thing for people to think about is like, I think that it's prevalent enough in the news around like autos. If you looked at the number of automobiles under construction right now, it would be wild because they're all sitting in parking lots waiting for microchips, right? I mean, I ordered an electric Ford Mustang, the Mach-E, right? I ordered it like, I don't know, I was like order number 4,000. I got it 2 weeks ago. It took like 2 years to get this thing, right? It was, I don't, not exactly, but it was just remarkable.
Like 2 years.
Well, and I mean, it was done at the beginning of the year, sitting there. And it took 6 months. It took 6 months to get on freight to get it delivered. It was wild. So it's every industry. And it's an interesting thing. And I mean, actually, if you want, I can even dovetail that into mortgage rates because it's all related. Yeah.
Well, let's do that. We're going to take a quick break. We're here with Justin Messer, Chief Operating Officer of Prosperity Mortgage, and we'll be right back. I'm John Jorgensen, and if you want to learn more about buying a home or selling your existing home, contact us through the show. We work with an incredible network of professionals who can help you get through the process smoothly. Again, that's gowithjohn.com. All right, we are back with Justin Messer, Chief Operating Officer of Prosperity Mortgage. So tell us about, so you ordered your Mustang. How long ago did you order it? You said it was 2 years, but I know it felt like 2 years.
I don't even remember. Like it didn't even register on me. I remember when I did it in terms of the moment. Because it was like I was watching the release on TV, and I'm from right outside Detroit, so Ford's a big deal. Like growing up, I thought Ford was the biggest auto company. I didn't know General Motors was bigger. Because it was like Ford country where I grew up. So I was watching it, and I said to my wife, "Hey, you know what? I'm just going to order this thing and see what happens." But it must have been a year and a half. I mean, it was whatever release was to 2 weeks ago. So whatever that was. So how do you like the car? It's fantastic. I mean, it's the first electric car I've ever driven. I actually did my first charging yesterday in the wild. It was very easy. It was not crazy, but it's really fast. So it's a little too fast for someone like me. I'm not a great driver. But the good thing is, on freeways around Metro DC, you kind of got to dart in and out every now and again. So it's really useful, but it's a beautiful car. The interior is fantastic. It's the GT version, so it's really nice. Wheels are fantastic. Sharp looking car.
Would expect nothing less.
There you go. But it's the speed of it, and I know everyone talks about the torque. And everything, and it's something. I mean, you hit your pedal on the gas, and you're at 50 miles per hour in 2 seconds.
Wow.
It's remarkable. And one cool thing is I didn't know how much of a club electric vehicles were. Until I got it, and then all of a sudden people in my neighborhood who never talked to me started talking to me because they have Teslas. And they're like, we made the decision that we're going to accept you into our group even though you have a Ford because you're part of the momentum, the movement. So, but it's been a great experience so far. I couldn't recommend it enough. And that's all I got.
So it's 4-seater.
It is.
Yeah, you got to have that. You got to have room for the kids.
It's like a little hatchback.
That's
how. I mean, it's an SUV technically, but it's a compact SUV. I mean, you could fit 2 sets of golf clubs in the back if you really worked it around. But it's not huge. My Taurus actually had more trunk space than this guy. But.
Right. Cool. So you said you were going to work the chip shortage into interest rates. Did I catch that right at the end of the last segment?
Kind of like the grand chip shortage. So the concept of everything, and it has something to do with all of that. Including labor and not having the labor supply, right? So let's think of the best way to do this. Here we go.
Sure.
You shouldn't have had that break, John. I was on fire until then. So, if we think about simple supply and demand, right? If I have this cell phone in my hand and you really want it, and this is the only cell phone on the market, you're willing to pay more than if there are 5 people behind me with the same cell phone willing to sell.
Correct.
Right. Therefore, if there is a scarcity of something, meaning a limited supply, I can demand more prices.
Yes.
So when we talk about something like used cars is a great example, right? So the chip shortage means there aren't many new cars available.
Right.
So if people need a car, because that's something that you need, it's a life necessity,
Yes.
right? If you have to have a car, you therefore have to go into the used car market in most cases.
Yep.
Therefore, the used car market, right, as we've heard reported, that's why that is going so crazy, and prices are $5,000, $10,000 more than you would normally anticipate.
Right.
It's not only in cars though, right? It's in a lot of things because it's hard to get anything right now. Right? It's hard to get furniture. It's hard to get laptops. So the people that need it immediately are willing to pay more money, just like a house.
Right.
Houses are the number one thing that, it's really funny. If we go to the grocery store and we're buying a thing of strawberries and it was $4 last week and it's $4.40 this week, we're irritated.
Yeah.
If we look at our house and it was worth $400,000 and now it's worth $440,000, we are the happiest people in the world.
Right.
It's like one of the areas where we root for inflation in the country, right?
Yes.
And so that's one example, right? So that's like a supply demand issue, right? The second thing we were talking about was labor, okay? And so when people are either unwilling, unmotivated to go to work, or there are just more jobs than people need, what happens? People shift jobs. They go back only if they demand more income, et cetera.
Right.
So let's just take it in the simplest level, which is I think McDonald's jobs were probably like $13 an hour in a lot of markets, and now I've seen stuff that's like $20 an hour,
or
right?
8 to 13.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Exactly.
Whatever the
Depending on what
numbers are,
market you're in. Yeah.
whatever the numbers are, right? They increase dramatically, and
Absolutely.
there's no way that cost doesn't get passed through to your Big Macs, et
Right.
cetera.
They've gone up
eventually.
like $1. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It's hurting me.
So all of those things are inflation, which means it costs more tomorrow than it did yesterday, right? Or than it does today. So the question is, why is inflation a big deal? Let me try this one. So I have a cup of coffee in front of me.
Right.
Okay. And I went to Dunkin' Donuts this morning and I bought this, and let's say I spent $1 on it.
Right.
Okay. So my option today was to take that $1 and buy that cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Or John, I could have lent it to you.
Sure.
Right? And the reason I lend it to you is because when you pay me back, I want to have made more money on that. So I want to be able to buy my cup of coffee and have some change left in my pocket.
Right.
So let's keep it simple and let's keep rolling down this analogy.
Right.
Okay, so today, instead of buying that cup of coffee, I came in with my $1 and I decided to lend it to you.
Sure.
And I said, John, I'm going to charge you 5%. So next year, when we meet each other at this same spot, you're going to give me $1.05. Okay, so fast forward to a year, you pay me back that $1.05. Just like we were saying with McDonald's or with anything else, if I walk into the Dunkin' Donuts and the coffee is now $1.07, I don't even have enough money to buy that cup of coffee.
Right. You've lost 2 cents.
I've lost 2 cents.
Right.
Even though in my head I said I made 5% on that.
Right.
I really didn't. I lost 2 cents.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I'm tracking. Yep.
So the entire world is based on this idea of how much stuff is going to cost tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, interest rates, whether they be what we call the United States 10-year, that's just the interest rate people charge to lend the United States money.
Right.
Mortgage rates are just the interest rate that people charge you to finance your house.
Right.
They're all just loans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So if we think prices are going to get way more expensive in the future, interest rates have to go up because the people lending the money need to feel like or know that they have more money when they get it back than they did when they originally lent it.
Right.
So all of this stuff, whether it be labor, whether it be supply constraints, whatever it happens to be, or a wage price spiral that we're in today where people get paid more money so they're willing to pay more for stuff, all that stuff is all related. And it all comes down to why interest rates, it's odd that they haven't increased much more quickly.
Right.
Because everyone thinks this inflation thing might be temporary.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Do you think it's temporary?
I think we're starting to see cracks that it's not.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that.
It's hard to see through it to see why it would be temporary.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. There are areas you can look at, just like with anything. Like today, right now, I could probably tell you 2 or 3 areas that I think are bubbles. I can tell you 2 or 3 areas that I think are temporary in inflation. Lumber was the classic example of something that skyrocketed quickly.
Yep.
The world all the buzzers went off.
Oh, yeah.
And then it kind of reset back, right?
Yes.
So from that standpoint, there are areas that are like that. But this phenomenon that we're talking about, do we think that all of a sudden we're going to tell everyone that's making, $13 or $20 an hour at McDonald's and now they're going to make 10?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You don't put that genie back in the bottle.
Right. It's not only that. All of the just in my world with new home building, the subcontractors, their employees are all demanding more money because they're hearing on the news all the money that the home builders are making and blah, blah, blah. So, all these people that have gotten raises, you're exactly right. They're not coming back down. The grocery store workers that are getting paid more to come to work, right? It's really amazing, and I think really the crux of it is a lot of it. And again, we don't do politics on this show, but there's been a lot of government money that's encouraged people to. I don't know if it encouraged them to stay home, but that was a byproduct of the programs. We spend about $500 a month on ads every month. And we've had literally nobody applying for our jobs for the last 18 months. And just in the last few weeks, we've started to get more and more people applying for jobs because the government money is running out. Coincidence? Maybe, right? But I'm not sure.
It's interesting. There's a lot of studying going on right now about that, and a lot of people are looking at the states that remove benefits early versus the states that kept them on. And I think the original data pushed that there was definitely a correlation. And now we're seeing it kind of loosen up a little bit,
right,
to not necessarily be as strong.
Yeah.
Whether that, again, it's tough to know who's presenting the numbers is the key to look at.
Yeah,
right?
and it doesn't matter how we got here, really, because we're here. Because everybody's had to pay more money to get people to come to work, whether it's because people didn't want to be in the grocery store because they were on the front line with COVID, right? So people needed to be paid more money to be encouraged to come in and do the job, but that drives grocery prices, among other things.
And to be candid, I mean, most of this wage growth was seen in the lower portion of earners, which is very, very important.
Yes.
Right? And I mean, I think that's a very positive trend. The thing that's unfortunate is that it seems we have a lockstep inflation move along with it. So once again, inflation moving grocery prices, I mean, that's essentially a tax that impacts
everybody.
People with less income than more income.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you have $100 in your pocket and you lose $1 of it, it's a lot less impactful than if you have $5 in your pocket and you lose $1 of it.
Exactly.
So even though wages have increased, the hope is that this inflation does tamp down and that the wage growth continues. Because, I mean, wage growth is also one of the key factors to being able to support home price appreciation.
Absolutely.
If we don't have economic growth and wage growth, how the heck can we continue to support 4 to 5, let alone 10% growth in home ownership, or home price appreciation rather?
Right.
It's impossible. So you have to root for it. You have to root for the American story and that sort of thing. So there are positives as long as that inflation remains I would say not out of control. How about that?
Right. Well, exactly. But it is, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. They're getting more money, but they're spending more money to buy what they need. So hopefully there's some transitory inflation that
100%.
that'll settle down. Great. All right. Well, we're going to take one more quick break, and we're going to come back for our final segment with Justin Messer, Chief Operating Officer of Prosperity Mortgage. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah.
A lot of folks think that building a custom home is a complicated and arduous process. It doesn't have to be. At Stanley Martin Custom Homes, we have the process down to a science. We will bring you through the buying, design, and building phase one step at a time. Head on over to webuildonyourlot.com and check us out. Reach out to us if you want to get started on the path to your very own Stanley Martin Custom Home. So we're back with Justin Messer, Chief Operating Officer of Prosperity Mortgage. So tell us a little bit about your college days. Where'd you go to college?
I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
What a great town.
It's one of those rare towns. I think there are several throughout the country where the campus is really part of the town. Right. It's not a small city. It's got 100,000+ people in it. It's nice size, but the campus is just all over the place in the city. So you really feel like you're part of the city. And it's not like it's not like NYU in Manhattan, right? Instead it's just this great Midwest town. And I lived there for 8 years, but I realized that when I told people I was in Ann Arbor for 8 years, they thought I had like a master's degree or something. And I was like, oh, no. I was there for 4 years, then I lived above a bar for 4 years. It wasn't anything like that, But,
right. So after college, you just stayed.
I did. So
a lot of people do that, actually. I think. I mean, it's a magnet. When you get there, some people just stay.
It is, and I had a lot of friends on the 6 and 7 year plan for undergrad, so they still stuck around. So it was nice, and I got a job just at now it's called Rocket. mortgage, and it wasn't always in downtown Detroit. It used to be in the suburbs a little bit, so it was a decent commute from Ann Arbor for me there.
Yeah. So how so I've spent a little time there, obviously not much, but I made a comment during the break that it's cold up there. I was there in the wrong time of year. I've been there in summer and winter, but it's it would be hard for me to handle that winter, I think. But I guess it helps you focus on your studies. I'm not sure.
No, it makes you stay in your room or your house and not go to class. It's terrible. The winters can be brutal, and I would just say growing up in the upper Midwest, as we call it, in Michigan.
Right.
The difference is it's not only the cold, it's that it's gray.
Yeah.
So you have it's like, in Russia or something. Like you have like two months of gray sky.
Right.
Very rarely do you have a beautifully crisp blue sky day.
Right.
Maybe it has something to do with the lakes. I don't really know, but the whole time until I moved to Northern Virginia or DC actually like 10 years ago.
Right.
The winter was beautiful and there were blue skies, and although it was cold, it was wonderful. And
the further south you go, you get more blue.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So did you go right from college to Rocket Mortgage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started right there as kind of a trader. So a bond trader, interest rate risk management, kind of that scope, trading mortgages, that sort of thing. So I came right out of school, did that.
Yeah.
Did that for almost 6 years, and then came down to DC.
Cool. So what do you think? I'm gonna throw you kind of a curveball here.
All right.
So what do you think? Because you're obviously very successful. What are some of the keys to your success that you would potentially share with a youngster that's going to Michigan right now?
So here's why I'm stopping.
Yeah.
I don't know what the world looks like now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was coming up, we were in the office, and that might seem like a weird thing for people 5 years from now.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Right.
So this is a big quandary I have around, in a problem that I'm trying to struggle with our organization, which is, how do we identify talent?
Right.
How do we identify people who are grabbing stuff? Because here's how I came up. I came up just having a voracious curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. So my curiosity drove. I wanted to not offend people, but put my nose in everyone's business to understand how they did it, to understand their methods, to understand what happened. What did that mean? That meant a lot of late hours at the office. That meant sitting there and figuring stuff out. That meant just grabbing onto projects and taking them off of people's plate when I saw them working on it and say, hey, I'll run with this to the goal line, right?
Right.
And I'll finish it.
Right.
And that's kind of how I established myself and what I did, which is I just worked really, really hard. Right. I really was passionate about it. Right. And I think no matter what you do, I didn't leave college being passionate about mortgages.
Right.
When you took a step back, when you go your whole college life thinking you're going to work on Wall Street and you end up in a suburb of Detroit, you immediately have to reset things and go, is this where I want to be? Little did I know that was the absolute best path that could ever happen for me. It was the blessing in disguise of my life. So when we take a step back, how do you do that? How do you see what people are working on when everyone's working on their own, in their own areas? I'm concerned about that. It's something that keeps me up at night, to be candid with you.
Yeah, no, we struggle with that too. And I think my entire team and I, we talk about, bringing new people into our world. Nick and I have worked together Nick's our producer here in the room with us today. And we worked together in the office before we went virtual, right? So we already know what each other's work ethic is. And same with some other folks on the team, but the new folks coming in, I think, have a real challenge for us, both for us and for them, to fit into the team. It's you don't have the water cooler conversations, and you really can't see the work ethic. You don't know if people are exactly getting to work on time, and the things that you usually look to measure people. So it's a struggle. And
some roles are easier to measure in terms of numbers and productivity and widget making, right?
Right.
But even that, like you say, okay, team member A makes more widgets than team member B. Does that mean you put team member A into a leadership position?
Right.
Well, no, because they have no ability to manage people because their personality isn't that, or they don't want to do that, or you would know that.
Right.
It's almost impossible to tell that now. A lot of team members, unfortunately, because like all companies, we expanded dramatically during the pandemic. I know them more through a very brief interaction on a Zoom or Teams call versus stopping by and making rounds and really getting to know them, or even traveling into market and getting to know them, because we've always been kind of a spread out company. But I'd be in market all the time, talking to people, sitting down, having lunches or dinners or whatever it happens to be, and even that's a little bit different now.
Right. Yeah, you got to sit further apart, right?
So sorry to answer your question with a big
no,
big
it's
postulation.
Good. No,
there,
no,
but,
and that's why I knew it was a curveball because we really hadn't gone there. So what inspires you? What drives you? What gets you out of bed every day?
So there's a mantra that I like to use, which is iterate or die, and it's kind of I stole it from a multitude of places, but there's a great book called Ask Your Developer, written by the guy who founded Twilio. Coincidence that he went to the University of Michigan, but and really it's kind of like this survival of the fittest mentality that
Darwin, grow or die.
Exactly. So you need to keep iterating, and so it's a whole idea of find your core. And for me, and I think any company that I'm ever going to be a part of, whether it's I die here or whether I find somewhere else, the bottom line is find your North Star. For us, it is being the absolute best purchase mortgage lender in the United States, and it's the customer first, right? It's an easy North Star to do, but then when you think of every project through that vein, so everything that comes through the door, you say, how does it impact my customer, right? And your customer can be the realtor in our sense, it can be the borrower, it can be our own internal team members. How does it impact them? And if it's not going to impact them, I'm not going to waste custom development or amazing amount of time on it. Instead, I'm just going to find a solution that works. Right. And so that's what keeps me passionate, is this constant iteration. We build stuff and it never stops. Right. So I wake up every single day with whiteboard galore in my home office now. It used to be my office. That's just constant vomiting of thoughts. Of which I throw away 15 out of 16. And so that's what keeps us going. I mean, we have a definite drive. We're the largest affiliate purchase lender in the country. We're a top 20 purchase lender in the country, but we have a drive, and our drive is to be in the top 5. And so it keeps me up, and knowing that we have 1,500 team members and they all look to us to make sure their livelihood is there, and that we continue to grow and we don't get stale. We don't become irrelevant. That's really the passion from a work perspective, at least.
Right. It sounds good. And, I can tell you, being in the room with you and being in the room with Tim Wilson, both of you guys have an enormous amount of energy. You're just radiate energy, and happiness and positive, but you do. We try. I can feel it in the air. Yeah. So fantastic. So listen, Justin Messer, Chief Operating Officer of Prosperity Mortgage, thanks so much for coming in. Really enjoyed the chat. It was awesome.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate
Absolutely.
It. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
All right.